Welcome to your weekly program, Belahdan, a show with an accent for those without one. Last night I stumbled to, it was in Black Dog Cafe, and it was a great evening there. It was a book signing for a poet, a local poet here, and I was intrigued by the title of the book, which is Jesus of Walmart. I said, I gotta see this. And I actually went there. It was a lovely evening, lovely people, lovely place, drinks, food, music, live music, flamenco, jazz. It just had the right tone and right touches. And we have here Richard Brodrick, and won a lot of award here from Atlantic Review and the 26th Artists Institute Award from Minnesota State Arts Board. He is also an award-winning journalist and community activist. His writing has appeared in periodical and literary journal around the United States. Everything else. Welcome to Belahdan, Richard. It really was a lovely evening last night. I want to start with this is the third collection, or you had Jesus of Walmart, and I'm sure there is a story behind this title.
Yes.
Take me through it.
My writing and my professional career as a writer, which isn't from poetry but from journalism, has always been focused on politics, culture, social issues. And I've always believed that even if you're writing poetry or doing any other kind of art, that it's vital to be engaged with the world. Mm-hmm. And that the evening last night was kind of epitomized something that I really have come to believe in, which is that it's not about me. Mm-hmm.
You're right.
And I didn't want it to be about me.
No.
Poetry is it's a form of art, and it's out there in the world. It's not really about the writer. Mm. It's about the words on the page or the words in the ears of the audience. And it's I like to think of literature as a kind of transaction, as an exchange, in which the words that the writer comes up with and the images the writer comes up with are a way of triggering a response. Mm-hmm. From the reader or the audience. It's not trying to tell people what to think or tell people what to feel, but to put things out there that will then engage the imagination and the feelings.
Well, it's an interesting point because there is an argument there when the writer writes something, or write a book, or write a poem. He doesn't own it anymore. I mean, the audience owns it.
Right, and if you believe, as I do, that works of inspiration never do belong to the person who's inspired. Mm-hmm. The poet or the artist is really a channel mm-hmm. through which this energy moves, and that what the artist or the writer brings to it is personal experience, which helps shape the images and the sounds. But I don't think of anything that I write under inspiration as belonging to me.
Well, I mean, unless you are sitting on a tree by yourself somewhere. So you are engaged with the society, you engage with issues.
Even if you're sitting in a tree.
Yeah.
The great thing about world literature, and I'm interested in world literature, not just literature of the English world, mm-hmm. English-speaking world, is I think of it as a community that stretches back thousands of years. Mm-hmm. And that when I pick up a poem by Sappho, I am engaging with someone who lived several hundred years before the birth of Christ. When I read a poem by Mahmoud Darwish, I am communicating with a culture different from my own, in which I couldn't possibly make my way. I don't know Arabic, mm-hmm. but by reading him, I'm coming into contact with something that is beyond my personal experience, and entering into a community.
And isn't that role of the art is kind of looking at the reality and try to reshape it or understand it or present it to the audience in a different way that is not obvious or is not presented by other sources like news or politics or whatever?
Well, I shy away from a phrase like shaping reality.
That's true.
We have an idea in our culture that imagination is something like what Walt Disney talks about, Imagineering. But what that really is fantasy. Fantasy is the attempt to impose one's subjective vision on reality. Imagination is actually a surrender to a deeper reality and to allowing that reality to enter into you, and you become a channel. And if you're lucky and if you worked at it a long time like I have, it will come out with sounds and images that will appeal to people and communicate with them and help them enter into reality.
And give them the space to interpret it the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
As opposed to Walt Disney, he wants to have just a McDonaldized vision of what happiness is. Everybody gets the same hat or the same Mickey Mouse, whatever.
Right. Any work of art, but poetry is the one I'm most familiar with, really is a balance of two different kinds of thinking and feeling. One I think of as logos and the other as eros. Logos is explanation, logic, judgment, the rules, the structure, the limit. And the eros part is intuition and imagination, and it's organic and it's the flow. And the best art, to me, balances those and negotiates the boundary between them as it goes along. And the thing I love about poetry is that it's the literary form where you can push it furthest. Words don't even need to make sense in some sort of a logical form to still be beautiful and have rhythm and music. Images are based on taking things that to the logical mind don't connect. This is not like that, and showing how they
Not
are.
supposed to.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, also the difference. You alluded to the images and words. It seems like to me, images is more undemocratic. It's more dictatorial than words. When you see an image, it just is.
Oh yes, I see what you. Yeah, all works of art, all communication between human beings on whatever level involve mediated
Media.
some sort of mediation.
Yeah.
And one of the goals to me in poetry, as in other kinds of art, is to reduce the degree of mediation to the minimum.
Oh.
So that the writer is not telling you what to
Pausing.
think. No, absolutely not. So that when you see an image on the page, it is similar to seeing an image on the cover of this book. You have this sort of visceral response. Yeah. I mean, poetry to me is at its strongest when it speaks past the brain and directly to the heart and the soul.
Interesting.
Right? Yeah. And the eye.
I don't know, a painter, I think he's not French, but he wrote a beautiful paint, and still today they try to question what he meant by. He wrote, he just painted a pipe. I think his name is Martin, and wrote under it, "This is not a pipe." And until today, we try people try to address the issue of representation.
I think that was Magritte.
Yes. Yeah, but the idea of representation between image and words, and if this is, he's tinkering with people, how the audience, when I'm gonna see a beautiful image, all nice, and you leave. But he tinkered with them and tinkered with their mind. This is not a pipe. So the question is, what is it?
Right.
So, this is what you're trying to do. And I read some of your poems and the reading last night, and I just you were talking about the story of the name of the book,
Jesus of Walmart.
Jesus of Walmart. Through about the making of the poem, and it ended up the name of the book. I mean, the collection.
Well, it's always hard to pinpoint exactly the origin.
Yeah, everything is close enough.
It's not like I've been planning for 5 years to write this.
It's evolving things. And then you're talking about, last night you talked about was a conversation between you and your son.
Which itself was something that came as a culmination of earlier thinking and conversations. Jesus of Walmart. probably got its genesis in a resistance that I express at times toward people like you and me who are educated and relatively affluent and living lives that, compared to most people in the world, are pretty privileged. And people like that I know who are of a liberal or progressive bent will say things like, Walmart's a terrible company. They should close it down. And I'll go, well, okay. Yes, it's a terrible company. It's run by terrible people.
And?
But are you then willing to work to create an alternative for the people for whom Walmart is really the only place they can go and afford the things they need at the time of day they can go, right? Because when people say, let's do away with it, they forget a couple of things. First, the poor will always be with us. And the people that we're talking about in this poem are not just the poor. There's a difference between poor and destitute, poor and being outcast, poor and being disposable. And we live in a world where increasing numbers of people are disposable as far as the culture is concerned.
The whole culture is disposable.
No value. Yeah, but I mean, I'm talking about people.
Yeah.
And one of the realities of history, beginning with the rise of civilization 6,000 years ago, was that the poor have always paid for their oppression. They're the ones who bear the burden. They don't do it willingly. They don't have choice.
Well, you gotta keep them alive.
They're most of the time, yeah. They're coerced in one way or another. They don't have any choice. So anyway, so this began with this kind of contrarian view about just saying, let's eliminate this and everything will be fine. Well, yeah, it might be fine for me or you, but maybe not for the people who go to Walmart's on Saturday night at midnight.
And actually, this is the argument that executives at Walmart are using. You know, we're providing a valuable service.
And I don't want to go there because it is a terrible
politics.
company, and they are, you know, this is about greed.
You're not defending them.
I'm not defending them by any means whatsoever.
Yeah.
Anyway, one night, my son and I went to the Walmarts at University and Snelling in St. Paul, which is kind of a marginal neighborhood. You know, there's nice areas and very poor areas, and lots of people from other countries.
They do research. They do.
Where they place them? I'm sure they do. And we don't usually shop there, but it was a time of night when there was nothing else open, and I can't remember what we needed.
What are you going to do?
What was I going to do?
Yeah.
So we went to Walmart, and my son, Gabriel, who's now 19, he also, for whatever reason, because he grew up in my household, he also has a very highly developed sense of social consciousness. He's very aware. And we were looking around at the people who were shopping, and also many of the people who were working there. And I don't know how it came up exactly, except we were talking about this environment, and it suddenly occurred to me, and I said, you know what? If Jesus were alive today, this is where he'd be. Because this is the 21st century equivalent of the people his ministry focused on 2,000 years ago. The outcasts, you know, the destitute, the prostitutes, the Romans, you know, the tax collectors, the insane, right? People who were possessed, people who were paralyzed, people who were blind, you know, people who just in that part of the
last resort.
Yeah, people who in that day and age were the disposable people of the Roman Empire in that particular backward province, right? And shortly after that conversation, I just sat down and I wrote this. And I'm not one of those people who labors over a poem for years and years. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I know people
just
who do
write
that.
the damn thing.
Well, I mean, there are people who, that's their process.
Yeah,
Everyone's got
processing
different
the
different process. I tend to write things pretty quickly. I'll go back and make some changes. I've found that the best editing tool for me is just to set it aside for 6 months or a year.
Really?
And go back and look at it because I no longer have any attachment to it.
Not the second day?
No, I mean, if it's the second day, I'm still thinking, oh, this is great, or oh, this is terrible. But a year later, it's like, oh, somebody else wrote it.
Yeah.
and I can look at it with objective
Interesting.
eyes
Yeah.
and edit it as if I was editing your work
Yeah,
or the
exactly.
work of some other poet.
Like,
Yeah,
like an audience, like
exactly,
a reader.
exactly.
Yeah. But
know.
you know, it's interesting that you said if Jesus comes now, that's a place to be. You know, you meet his people.
Yes, exactly.
But you know, in a new con and that globalization and this capitalism, that now they're talking about different Jesus. He is the CEO of the capitalist system, and he comes to the rich. He blesses the rich, and he's not happy with the poor. And this is what we're seeing right now. When you can see that now, Morofan right or the Christian rights and all of that,
Right.
they are endorsing the rich. They are endorsing the wealthy, and the poor are just the God. You know, they didn't get the blessing from God. That's why they are poor. So really, you are kind of bringing something else, and you're bringing something to the original where it was,
Right.
as opposed to what you're trying to.
Yeah, that vision of Jesus obviously is contrary to the portrayal of Jesus.
But have been
in the
accepted by
Synoptic Gospels.
a lot of Christians.
Well, you know, I don't remember who first said it, whether it was H.L. Mencken, but it might have been Mark Twain, that it's very difficult to convince a man that your argument has merit when his income depends on not seeing that your argument has merit. Okay?
Yes.
So I think what you're seeing, and I don't want to get too far into this because I know it's not really what it's about,
yeah.
but the people who buy into that vision are buying into the notion of a kind of resurrection, of a kind of salvation.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't actually condemn or judge people who are ordinary people who embrace that, because they too are looking for hope.
Yeah.
Right? And to me,
hope to be rich.
Well,
is that what you talk?
Well,
to be
hope to get out of their
to get out of whatever misery.
Their misery, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. You know, to me, what is sacred about religions is not the dogma. You know, it's not what people believe. It's the yearning.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
It's the suffering. It's the hope.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, clearly that vision of what Jesus was saying is very different. But you find the same kind of disparity in the Buddhist world, in the Muslim world.
Sure,
you know,
sure.
people who
Yeah.
think that the Quran says you should do this, and it's not really what it
Yeah,
says.
it's not what the text said, it's how you interpret
That's
it.
how you interpret it, exactly. Yeah.
So, okay. Can we, you know, can you read a little bit from
Absolutely.
from Jesus of Walmart? And we're going to add some music because it was lovely last night.
Thank you.
That jazz behind, you know, background jazz playing.
So when I wrote this, Ahmed, I wanted to be very careful that it wasn't tendentious. I wasn't trying to convince people of anything. And I certainly don't embrace any sort of sentimental vision of Jesus.
Of the past, whatever.
No, you know, I'm not a Christian. I was raised Catholic, but it's been a long time. And, you know, but I know the New Testament, and I know the lessons there, and the Sermon on the Mount. You know, blessed are the poor.
Yeah.
Blessed are the meek; they shall inherit the earth. But I didn't want to turn this. I didn't want it to be a religious poem.
No.
You know, or a sanctimonious poem. And I wanted to enter into a kind of subversive way the topic by starting off with humor. Now, I can't say I thought this all through. You know, I didn't sit down and think this, but so I thought, okay, so hire him as a greeter. What would it be like if Jesus was a greeter at Walmart? Okay.
And actually, when you go to Walmart, the people who greet you, they
yeah.
look like.
Well, they have a kind of welcoming quality, right? Which is welcoming is what I think most people in the world want.
Yeah,
they want to be welcomed.
Exactly.
They want to feel like they're invited to the banquet. Right?
They are different than when you go to Macy's and they go and spray you. It's a little bit fake. Come on, calm down and let me go through this.
I think it's a different audience,
different greeting.
mentality.
Yeah.
So I wanted to start out in a lighthearted way.
Yeah.
And then without really planning too carefully, it's all very intuitive, work through the poem to the deeper issues, the things that speak past class and the artificial distinctions that we project on ourselves and other people.
I like that.
You know, one other genesis of the poem, if I may, very briefly. An experience I had in Paris in 2009. I was there with my son and his mom, and we were walking down the street toward the Père Lachaise cemetery in northeast Paris, big tourist attraction. This was a July evening, beautiful night, still sunny out. And I saw this crowd of about 150 people outside the main gates of Père Lachaise. And I couldn't figure out what was going on because I knew they couldn't go in there. It was locked. We'd been there earlier, and I knew they shunned us. They shut us out. And so I came up to see what was going on and saw that there was a truck up on the sidewalk. And it was a kind of kitchen truck. And the sides were down. And there were some people, young people, wearing red vests on which it said, Amatullah. And I thought, okay, well, this must be some sort of Muslim charitable organization, and they're feeding these people. Okay? And being a curious person, and I'd like to get up close and look and see, I decided to go and see what they were serving. What would you feed people on the streets of Paris from a truck? And so I went up and I was kind of poking around and looking over people's shoulders into there was a steam table in the center of the truck with the sides down, which were serving as counters. And it looked really good. They were serving couscous and sauce and some yogurt dessert, and some soft drinks for the kids, and some sparkling water for the adults. And the crowd was made up of people of all different ethnicities and classes. I mean, I'm assuming they were all poor, but there were people from Sub-Saharan Africa, North Africa, East Asia, Europeans, everything in between. And this young man came up behind me. I didn't see him, but I felt this very gentle tap on my shoulder, and I turned around, and it was one of the volunteers wearing the red vest for Amatullah, and he said in French, "Excuse me, sir, you have to get in line." And I realized, oh, he thinks I've come over here to eat.
Yeah.
And I started to say, no, and I thought,
why not?
I did. And what I felt at that moment, Ahmed, was liberated. I thought, what a liberating experience to be a white middle-class American tourist in Paris, and this young man whose role is to minister to the hungry of the earth did not see these artificial distinctions, did not see me that. He saw me as just another one of God's hungry children.
Exactly.
And beautiful. I thought, this was far from being indignant. I thought, this is who I really am, right? This is who we really all are underneath all those.
At some point or another, we're going to be hungry, we're going to be upset, we're going to be whatever going through any of this. Could happen to anybody.
We all come into the world naked. We all go out with nothing. And
what an image! We have only half a minute. Do you wanna?
Half a minute. Okay.
I think
is that the signal we're getting?
Yeah, the signal has been going on for a while.
So Jesus of Walmart. They liked the radiant smile, his upbeat manner, and so, despite a scanty work record, assistant carpenter, then 3 years wandering the hills, they hired him as a greeter. The wages from his full-time, 28-hour-a-week job, not enough to cover the company's health insurance. Get sick around here, and you just have to heal yourself, muttered the disgruntled associate, a 50-ish mother whose crippled daughter got up the very next day and walked. Everybody calling it a miracle, just like that special order of t-shirts that sold for $1.99 each.
I like that ending. When you read your poems, it has this style and it's almost a genre of its own, humor, and it has all sharp. So it's a beautiful poem collection here. Jesus of Walmart. I think you can get it from anywhere these days, and we'll hopefully enjoy this. And we'll see you next week. Assalamu alaikum and God bless you all.